Hello. So the day has finally come. I'm going to answer the number one question that I get on my TikTok about starting an IV hydration business. It took me a little bit to get all my poop in a scoop here so that I can tell you guys about this because this is kind of complicated. And the number one question I get is about legal structure. So how do you structure your business, like the relationship between you and the medical director, so that everything is legal and compliant? There's like three things that I need to address before we jump into the content here. The first is that I am not a lawyer. I'm a registered nurse and I'm a business owner. I have personal experience and I've done a lot of research and spoke with my own legal team about the topic that I'm presenting to you guys today, but I am not a lawyer and I should not be substituted for one. So go seek your own legal advice as you need to. Second little disclaimer, this video is going to be kind of long. It's a big topic. It's kind of complicated. I'm going to do my best to make it short, sweet, and simple. But just know that if you're really interested in this topic, you're going to have to hang in there. And third, before we get to the end of the video, I'll just tell you now, I did create a guide that breaks down all of the legal kind of structure, framework, major questions, and I even broke it down by state so that you know what your state specific rules are. Again, that doesn't substitute legal advice, but it's a huge step forward in the right direction. And anyone who follows me on TikTok can get that guide for free. So all you have to do is message me guide, and then I'll make sure that you're one of my followers. And if you are, I will send you the discount code to get that guide completely free. This is not going to last forever. I can't give stuff out for free forever, but I will do this for you guys for a little while here. So don't miss out on the guide. Okay, without further ado, let's do this. The law that is going to be most applicable to you as a registered nurse who's trying to open up a IV hydration business, and possibly also as a nurse practitioner if you are not in a full practice authority state. So RNs, LPNs, and nurse practitioners in non-full practice authority states, meaning you as a nurse practitioner are required to have a supervising medical director, these are going to apply to you. So what is corporate practice of medicine? Well, corporate practice of medicine was a law that guides ethical medical decision making. So basically what it says is that a physician or other healthcare provider, NPPA, cannot be influenced by corporate greed, essentially. So states that have strict corporate practice of medicine laws basically tell healthcare providers they cannot take orders from a corporate entity, like a for-profit entity. They need to either own that entity on their own or have something called a managed services agreement. And that's how my business operates. Before I jump into that, I'm just going to give a really quick example. Let's say there was a company called Best Budget Healthcare, and they opened up healthcare clinics, and they just straight up hired a bunch of nurse practitioners or doctors. In states without corporate practice of medicine, they can look at those doctors and say, I want you to prescribe the most expensive medication, or I want you to recommend the treatments that give us the highest percentage of profit. And that physician is in an ethical dilemma, right? Because the person who owns their paycheck, the person who owns the clinic they work in, is telling them to do one thing, but they may have a medical obligation to the patient on the other hand. So corporate practice of medicine is designed to prevent that kind of situation. And most states do have some sort of corporate practice of medicine. Either it's a state law or there have been court cases that have set a precedent for that state that says this is unethical in practice of medicine for corporations to dictate how medical providers provide medical care to patients. So when you become a registered nurse business owner, you are now a corporation, essentially in the state eyes, right? You are now a for-profit entity. You're a money-making business. There's no shame in that. That's not a bad thing. But that means that you are held to these same laws saying you cannot dictate how a medical provider practices medicine. However, you need a medical provider because also as an RN, you cannot prescribe IV fluids to someone. You cannot prescribe vitamins to someone, and you cannot prescribe medicines like Zofran or Toradol to someone. So you have to have a medical director, but you cannot outright hire one, right? Because now you, an RN, a corporate entity, have just hired a physician, a nurse practitioner, or a PA, and that violates the corporate practice of medicine doctrine. So how do companies like mine work within ethics and within the law, but still allow a nurse to own the business 100%? Well, that's where something called a managed service agreement comes in. So the nurse practitioner, PA, or MD that you wish to work with to provide the medical services for your clinic sets up a legal structure called a managed services organization. This can literally be like the size of a sheet of paper. A lawyer will draft this for you. It's not super complicated or cumbersome. I also recommend that your medical director file a simple PLLC to protect their license, and they operate the PLLC as a managed services organization. This does sound super complicated. I promise it's not. Filing for a PLLC, I've made a video about that before, but you just do it through your Secretary of State website. It's usually under $100 and the process takes about 15 minutes. Your medical director does that. Then they submit that PLLC paperwork to a lawyer and say, draft a managed service organization with this license. And my PLLC, it's like a page long, and it basically just says, like, Dr. Smith is operating Smith Medical PLLC as a managed service organization providing medical care or medical advice, medical oversight to clinics. Then you, as the registered nurse, work with ideally that same lawyer and create what is called a managed service agreement. And that is the agreement between you and your medical director for who is going to be responsible for what. So the medical director has to be responsible for all medical decisions. Things like standing orders, protocols, emergency protocols, anything that has to do with the practice of medicine, the prescribing part of the IV hydration business. They don't have to necessarily always be on site or even virtually there. They do have to be available to you, and they have to be available to answer medical questions, but they can have standing orders, and that counts as them being the ones in control of the practice of medicine. Now, you as the business owner, the nurse business owner, can be in charge of everything else: marketing, hiring, firing staff, maintaining the building, ordering supplies, as long as your managed service agreement says that that is your responsibility, which most medical directors want that to be the nurse's responsibility. So basically, all business operations are yours. Any medical decisions are the medical director's. So this really is exactly how the nurse-patient relationship works anyway. So it's not that complicated. It's just putting it onto paper and making sure that you call it the right things, right? So managed service organization, managed services agreement. It's just defining legally the nurse-doctor relationship, how we practice in any setting. Nurses do not prescribe. Doctors, PAs, and NPs do. We follow those orders. It's just now you're in a business setting, so the nurse retains control of all business decisions. The medical director maintains control of all medical decisions, and you have a contract. You are not hiring them. They do not work for you. They work with you on a contract basis. Now, there are a handful of states out there that do not have any doctrines, laws, case precedents on corporate practice of medicine. And in those cases, you as a registered nurse can actually just straight out hire a medical director. Not just you, any corporation in those states can just hire a physician, and the physician is an employee. Of course, because of the RN-MD relationship, you would still be deferring to them for medical decisions. And so the actual day-to-day structure and process doesn't really change. It's what legal documentation you have to have in place to define your structure may vary based on the state you live in. I hope this helped you guys. Again, I do have that guide available to you. Just make sure you follow me and then DM me that you want the guide. I'll make sure that you're a follower, and then I'll DM you back the link for the discount code. You just hop onto my Stan store and put in that discount code when you buy that legal guide link, and you'll get it for free. So it's just a little thank you for my TikTok followers, because you guys have been amazing, and I'm so grateful for like the questions I get asked. So this is my little token of gratitude. Thank you guys so much. If you have any other questions like this you want me to answer, or you need further clarity on this topic, just let me know. I am the RN Girl Boss. I make 6 figures monthly with my healthcare businesses, and I am here to share with you how I do it. So follow along.